All right, Friday morning on the Krug Show. Chase Sr.'s in the house. He's about ready to board the bird and come to the Bay for Super Bowl week. We got a lot to get to. Let's go. Off and running on a Friday morning on the Krug Show. Hope everybody's having a great one. 11 o'clock on the West Coast, 2 o'clock on the East Coast. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're soon to open in Petaluma. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out, so get there early. Get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. But joining us today, of course, the great Chase Sr., the star of Chat Sports 49er Report. The crowd's going crazy. They're very happy to see you. That's all you guys got for Chase, our studio audience? Come on.
There we go.
All right. There we go. Chase, good to see you. You had a tweet earlier that I thought was really interesting, and we're going to start right there with your tweet. You said, here are 5 49er cut candidates and players the Niners could move on from to clear some money before NFL free agency. And you have Jair Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Bryce Huff, Jake Brendel, and D. Winters. And I'll share the screen and let people kind of see the tweets if they haven't seen it. It's a good tweet, and you spent a lot of time on this one, putting together this thing. Tell us a little bit about this tweet, what you think. I would love to see, I like Winters, but I think he's totally replaceable. Brendel, I think, is overrated. Ayuk needs to be banished from the kingdom. I would keep Huff and Brown, but the other 3 guys can bolt as far as I'm concerned. Talk to me a little bit about your viewpoint. I know you threw out the possibility of all 5. Do you want to see all 5 cut, or how would you rank these guys?
So this is a popular segment that I do once or twice a year on the 49ers Report. And for the purpose of yesterday's show, the full long-form video is up on the 49ers Report. I pretty much looked at the Niners cap situation going into 2026. And then I looked at realistic cap casualties who, if the Niners wanted to move on from those players, they could create more cap room and have some more money to spend going into NFL free agency. And you just think about where we are right now on the NFL calendar. Super Bowl is coming up in 2 Sundays at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara between the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots. The NFL Combine is at the end of February going into March in Indianapolis. I'll be there. Some great Niners coverage will be up on my channel. And then right after that, the new league year for the NFL starts pretty much the second week of March. That's when free agency gets underway. And the Niners, from a cap standpoint, are in a pretty good position as compared to last year. They let all those players go. They ate over $100 million in dead money. And they really put a focus on getting younger, more affordable, handing out some contract extensions to Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, and George Kittle, focusing on the draft. But John Lynch, during his end of the season press conference last week, did say that this offseason, they expect to have more flexibility, which told me I think they're going to be more aggressive in free agency. So the Niners right now, among the 32 teams in the NFL, are 13th in cap space. They have $23.3 million in cap room, $18.9 million in effective cap space. So I just looked at somewhat realistic moves that the Niners can make in order to free up some more dollars to spend in free agency, because last year, the marquee addition that they made was Luke Farrell, who ended up not being a factor at all for the Niners here in 2025. And so these aren't players that I would necessarily want the Niners to move off of, but they are moves that are at least feasible to create some cap space, Larry. And you can chime in with some of your thoughts, or I can just continue to go through these players if you want.
Well, no, I mean, it's interesting. Okay, so, if you asked me in the middle of the year about D. Winters, I would say, I kind of like D. Winters, but he missed a lot of tackles the second half of the year. He's kind of small. He gets engulfed in the run game, and I think he's just a guy. I don't see him as special. I think he's athletic and a little on the faster side, but nothing special. So I get no problems with moving on from him, though that would create another hole in an already a linebacking core that already badly needs to be rebuilt. So I could see them saying, well, we'd like to keep him just for continuity's sake, so we don't have 4 new linebackers in Fred. Because, I mean, you're not keeping Wallow, you're not keeping Kendricks, you're not keeping Curtis Robinson. I don't know if you're keeping Gifford. They could be a totally new linebacking core, and they probably should be. So Winters is the one that's kind of a question mark. Brendel, this is like starting to bug me. I mean, it's starting to annoy me, actually. This, there is no amount of failure that we need to see while people keep touting Jake Brendel. I mean, you could not run for a yard on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 to the point where your coach is not even trying to do it. Isn't that speak louder than any PFF grade or any ranking or any stat that anybody throws at? We watched the game. They could not run the ball in the middle of the field. They didn't try to run the ball in the middle of the field. So I think he has to be banished. I mean, Huff, I think, was asked to do too much without Bosa. Jair, I mean, is a kind of a beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I'm with Shanahan. I kind of like Jair. I think he's better player than people think. Ayuk needs to be moved on. I mean, that's kind of my view of these guys. What's the total savings if you cut all 5?
Yeah, so look, we can run through this really quickly. So
yeah,
I think one of the bigger needs that is an underrated talking point for the Niners going into this offseason is the safety position. A lot of this is going to depend on who they hire as defensive coordinator. If they go with Jim Schwartz, yes, the Niners can continue to run the wide 9, but Jim Schwartz likes to run man defense on the back end. Kyle Shanahan and the Niners have always primarily played a lot of zone. Last year, Cleveland was number 1 in man coverage rate. The Niners were 23rd. And I just think that in general, whether you're playing zone or man, the Niners need to bring in a better coverage safety. And I just think that Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa are too similar as players, and they're both not great on the back end as far as being that center field type of safety, that ball hawk who you have trust in dropping back in coverage. So Jair is going into the final year of his contract. I think he's better around the line of scrimmage. I loved him coming out of Penn State, but I think Malik Mustafa has an additional year of team control. He's really good when he's operating downhill. He's so physical. He can make really good plays against the run. And if you pair him up with the good coverage safety, I kind of like that tandem. So if Jair is on the team in 2026, his cap number is $3.8 million. The dead cap number, if he's cut, is only $231,000. So that is cap savings right there of $3.5 million. Wide receiver Brandon Ayuk is obviously an interesting one because if he's on the roster in 2026, it's a cap number of $14.6 million. If he's cut pre-June 1, it's $29.5 million in dead money. Post-June 1, it goes down to $8.3 million in dead money. But the Niners have known that they're going to eat a large dead cap number, and they've already paid out a lot of the guarantees of his contract because he got $76 million when he signed that deal. You could trade him, but I'm not sure he has a lot of value coming off the injury. Does he even want to play football any longer? How does he look coming off that injury? And he's expensive. So I don't know if a team is going to want to inherit that contract and give up value for him. But by voiding his guarantees, the Niners do gain significant future cap flexibility, potentially clearing like $85 million in future commitments across 2026 to 2028. Then there's Bryce Huff. If he's on the team, cap number in 2026 is $5.3 million. There's no dead money, according to Over the Cap, if he's cut. So that opens up $5.3 million. For what it's worth, I would keep Huff. I think he's a really good Robin if Nick Bosa is the Batman. And he started the year off pretty well. He had, I think, 5 sacks in his first 7 games. Didn't have a sack after that. That tells me he needs some help around him. He's a situational speed pass rusher. And I think that he's a good player to have on the team this upcoming season, but no dead money and $5.3 million is the money that you save. Jake Brendel going into the final year of his contract. Larry, I'm with you. The Niners have to upgrade at center and left guard. They have to be better along the offensive line to close that gap on the Seahawks. That defense isn't going anywhere. So Brendel's cap number, if he's on the team, is $5.4 million. If he's cut, the dead number is $2.4 million. that's cap savings of 2.9. And then D Winters, if he's cut, the dead dollars, 33,000. If he's on the roster, his cap number is 3.6. So the cap savings there is about $3.5 million. So that's 3.5 for D. It's nearly 3 for Brendel. It would be 5.3 for Huff, and it would be 3.5 for Jair. So you do the simple math there, the Niners would be able to open up a decent amount of cap space to go after maybe one player and allocate those dollars toward that one player or multiple players. So that was kind of my thought process there.
Well, and it's great. It's a great thing. I mean, you really did do a good exercise here, and you did a lot of work on it. So congratulations on it. And also, I think it makes sense to say goodbye to a lot of these guys. Now, I do agree with your sentiment that they need a better coverage safety. I'm going to share the screen. To me, I've been watching a lot of practices this week, and I didn't watch tons of TCU, but how about this kid, Bud Clark?
Yep.
Look at the coverage here by
it's
Clark.
Bud Clark's.
Let me turn the volume down on this. We don't have to hear the commentator. But here's Clark just in a drill at the Senior Bowl practice, and look at the blanket coverage here. He's with him. He's draped. He knocks it away. He got the pick. That's a one-handed pick. Look at this. I mean, this is down the field, and he comes over and makes the play on the ball. Bud Clark had an amazing week. I looked at where he's ranked in the draft. I saw him like at roughly in the 150 to 160 range. We're talking about a mid-round pick. Man, I mean, the 49ers really maybe trading back, getting a couple extra picks in the third and fourth round.
There. That goal line rep is so nice.
I mean, look at this. Look at this.
Yeah.
That's a pick. That's an unbelievable pick. So granted, now it's practice, but these are, I think I put a lot of credence into the All-Star circuit because it's the best playing against the best. You might watch a college game and it could be Penn State against Illinois, but the Illinois guy could be a future plumber. And so, you're getting NFL guys, future NFL guys against future NFL guys. So I like Bud Clark. Is there a free agent, not necessarily at safety, but is there a free agent that you would like to take some of that savings from some of those cuts and spend it on? Because the one thing the Niners haven't done well is they have not gotten good free agents, it seems like, in a while. I didn't like what they did last year. It's been a while. I mean, you go back to like what Harbaugh did when he came here in free agency, getting guys like Justin Smith and, Carlos Rogers. And I mean, they just got a lot better. Dante Whitner. They got like impact kind of guys. I'm not seeing that from the 49ers in free agency. Is there a free agent that you want to see them go after?
Well, sticking to the safety position, I think that the free agency crop is somewhat thin. You've got Brian Cook from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a really good player. Cam Curl is just okay of the Rams. Kevin Byard of the Bears, really good ball hawk, but he's old. I think he returns to Chicago. You have Jabril Peppers of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He went there after he was let go by New England. Jalen Thompson out of Arizona. Kobe Bryant of the Seattle Seahawks is a player who's still young. I like him. And then you have Reed Blankenship from the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's the free agency class at the safety position. None of those guys really move the needle for me outside of Brian Cook. What I'd honestly rather do is probably draft a safety in the mid to later rounds. The Niners have had success in doing that. Look no further than Talanoa Hufanga, who they drafted in the 5th round, and he's become an all-pro player. But if you open up some cap room and free up some dollars with some of the moves that I mentioned there on top of the cap space that you already have. And the Niners are in the top half of the league in cap space going into the 2026 offseason, and they can create even more dollars if they want to. The free agents that are really the cream of the crop and the apple of my eye, Tyler Linderbaum at center, I think would be a huge upgrade over Jake Brendel. I'm pretty sure I saw you talking about him this week, and I've been talking about him throughout this offseason for the Niners. He's a really good run blocking center from Baltimore. That's a very complex scheme that Todd Monken was running. So I think he would be a good scheme fit for Kyle Shanahan. They run the ball a lot of zone stuff that Baltimore has been doing under Monken. And the Niners have been willing to invest in the center position. I mean, Weston Richburg got a nice little contract early in Kyle Shanahan's tenure. Unfortunately for him, his career was cut short due to injury. Alex Mack got some decent coin. So Tyler Linderbaum's a fantastic player. At tight end, you don't know when George Kittle's coming back. I'd like to see a blocking tight end come in here. Isaiah Likely is a really intriguing player. Kenyon Sadiq in the draft would be very interesting.
Ooh.
Obviously, that doesn't have to do with free agency. Kyle Pitts as a weapon, if you want to get more explosive and faster on offense, I think that his best football is ahead of him. He's still in his mid-20s. And when George Kittle comes back, if you let Jawan Jennings go, because I think he gets $20+ million, I think that Kyle Pitts in the slot can pretty much be like in that Jawan Jennings type of role. So I'd look at him. Alec Pierce, the Colts wide receiver, has led the NFL in yards per catch the last 2 years. He's tall. He's big. He runs really well. He has really good hands. We'll see if the Colts put the franchise tag on him. I wouldn't go after George Pickens after what happened with Brandon Ayuk, but if the Cowboys don't put the franchise tag on him, he becomes an intriguing option. A player who really helps you get faster and more explosive is Rashid Shaheed. He was probably my favorite trade that any team made at the NFL trade deadline. John Schneider knocked that trade out of the park. He didn't give up a lot to bring him in. And as a returner, as a gadget guy, and as a wide receiver, he's been so dynamic for Indianapolis. So those are really some of my top free agents that I would really look at. Along the defensive line, John Franklin Myers is somebody who can play defensive end and defensive tackle. Jalen Phillips was superb for the Eagles down the stretch after Howie made the move for him. The injury history is a little bit concerning, but this free agency crop, there's some really good players. Trey Hendrickson on a 1-year contract. The Niners have had interest in him over the last couple of years. That's another name to throw out there.
Yeah, God, Hendrickson would be a absolute find. And, you know, you're getting Bosa back, but I think you're going to have to add a significant player there to upgrade. All right, defensive coordinator. We don't have tons of time this morning, so we're going to hit these kind of fast. But defensive coordinator, Niners have interviewed Joe Woods, Raheem Morris, Gus Bradley. There's an awful lot of talk about Jim Schwartz. You know, people are like, you know, are you fine with Bradley? And I'm like, I am fine with Bradley. But if I was ranking them, I'd probably rank Schwartz, Morris, Bradley, Woods. That would be my rankings. But I do think the top 3 guys I'd be satisfied with. I don't think Gus is going to do the same thing here that he did with the Raiders. And I'm a much bigger believer in players. I think Gus is smart enough to adjust his schemes. Other people think that Gus would be a nightmare hire. Give me your rundown on the defensive coordinator position and who do you think it will ultimately be?
Yeah, so my number one option all along has been Jim Schwartz. Prior to that, it was Brian Flores, but obviously he's going back to the Minnesota Vikings to continue to be their defensive coordinator under Kevin O'Connell. And the Vikings on a Friday morning, just out of nowhere, fired their general manager, by the way. Crazy move right there. But yeah, Jim Schwartz is
former Niner executive.
Yes,
well.
Kwesi. Jim Schwartz is my number one candidate. I mean, for a long time, he's been one of the best defensive coordinators in football. He's been one of the best defensive minds, really, since the turn of the century, since 2000. And Kyle Shanahan has said that a big reason why he runs the wide 9 is because when he was a young coordinator and a young coach in the early 2000s, and Jim Schwartz was a DC for the Tennessee Titans for some of those really good defenses, he saw how impactful the wide 9 was. And Jim Schwartz has continued to run the wide 9. In Philadelphia, they had an awful defense in 2015 and 2016. They were elite in 2017. They won a Super Bowl. And then his last 3 years with Cleveland, those defenses have been phenomenal. And I salivate at the thought of what Jim Schwartz can do with the healthy Nick Bosa, with what he's done with Myles Garrett, who soon is going to become a 2-time defensive player of the year over the last 3 years under Jim Schwartz. The thing with Schwartz, you can run the wide 9. And so your alignment and what you do up front, it's not going to change a lot. He's going to have that wide 9, allow these players to pin their ears back, get after the quarterback, and I think Nick Bosa and Bryce Huff can thrive. CJ West, Alfred Collins, they are players who aren't great pass rushers, but in this scheme with Jim Schwartz, can they be a little bit better? You have that familiarity there. Jim Schwartz would be able to inherit Chris Kocurek, who was his defensive line coach with the Detroit Lions. The big change would be what the Niners do on the back end. They might have to change some personnel, and they would have to change what they do from a schematic standpoint, because last year, Cleveland, number 1 in man coverage rate, the Niners were 23rd, and the Niners have run a lot of zone. I actually don't hate that, because I think Renardo Green-Larry might be better as a man corner compared to his own corner, but I think you would need to address the safety position. So those are the thoughts on Schwartz. With Raheem Morris, he's my number 2 right now. Him and Kyle Shanahan are very tight. Kyle got arrested in 2005 defending him at the NFL Combine. Of course, the Buccaneers head coach in 2009 to 2011, got let go. Kyle Shanahan worked with Raheem in Atlanta when he was the OC there. Rams defensive coordinator 2021 through 2023, won a Super Bowl with that Rams team in 2021, and then the Falcons head coach over the last 2 years. What I like about Raheem is that his defensive scheme, early on at least, went back to that old school Tampa 2 defense. But over time, he's been able to adapt and evolve as a defensive mind. And when he took over for Brandon Staley is a Vic Fangio disciple. So Raheem Morris was able to run more of a Vic Fangio defense. And I like that malleability as a defensive coordinator. And he's very well respected, a good communicator, and he can be the head coach of that defense. Gus Bradley would come in at number 3. What I'm concerned about is he was fired by Indy, he was fired by Las Vegas, and he hasn't had an elite defense in a long time. Some of that can be personnel for sure. The familiarity there, the continuity, it's good. Kyle Shanahan's now going to have a 5th defensive coordinator in 5 years. And I don't think that Gus Bradley obviously is going to leave to get a head coaching job. So he might be the long-term DC if he has this defense playing well in 2026. But I just think there's a huge gap and drop-off from a Jim Schwartz and a Raheem Morris to Gus Bradley. Joe Woods worked on this Niners staff in 2019 as the DB's coach and defensive pass game coordinator. He's been a DC 2 times before with Cleveland and Denver, but I don't like him as an option. To replace Daniel Bullocks, I like that type of move, but not as a DC.
Fernando Mendoza is going to go first in the draft. I'm pretty confident in saying that. Probably to the Raiders, but you never know. Raiders own that number 1 pick right now. If I asked you to rank where Mac Jones ranks among the available quarterbacks this offseason, where do you think he ranks? Take every free agent, take every draft pick. You can have any quarterback any way you want. Heck, you could even throw in trade candidates if you want. Throw in Kyler. Throw in anybody you think is going to be on the trade market. Where would Mac Jones rank among quarterbacks that you could acquire in any way this offseason?
Wow. I'll say this. If he was a member of this draft class, obviously a huge hypothetical because he was drafted in 2021. He's been in the league for a little bit and he's on his 3rd team already. But if he was in this draft class, I think he would be the 2nd best quarterback in the class. Fernando Mendoza is the undisputed number 1 quarterback in this draft class. I love the size, the athleticism, how he can throw with timing, touch, accuracy, and anticipation, processes really well. I even like what he did at Cal. And then Curt Cignetti, I think, is such a good talent evaluator. For him to bring in Mendoza, very impressive. And what he did this year en route to winning a national championship, it was a great season for him. I think he goes number 1 overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. That would be smart. And then the Raiders can rebuild with a quarterback who is a cost-controlled asset for the next 5 years. But there is a big drop-off from Fernando Mendoza to a Ty Simpson, in my opinion. And Mac Jones, I think this past year, going 5-3 with how well he played, he finally had a quality coach calling plays for him. He really impressed me. I think he resurrected his career. And I think he revived it to a sense where he can become a quality starting quarterback in this league. We just saw it. And think about what he had to deal with. This offensive line was not good. They could not run the football. Kendrick Bourne, for a lot of the games that Mac Jones started, was his number 1 wide receiver. He had no George Kittle. So he really did do a good job of maximizing the players around him, playing point guard, running this Kyle Shanahan offense. And oftentimes he made chicken salad out of chicken shit. Now, when the Niners went up against some pretty good defenses with good defensive lines, Tampa Bay and Houston, he didn't play as well. But outside of that, I thought he played really good football. And even in those games, he did some nice things. So in the draft class, I think he'd be the 2nd best option. Among all quarterbacks this offseason, would you take Mac Jones?
I'll throw some free agents.
Willis?
Yeah, I'll throw you the free agents. You just tell me Mac Jones.
Malik Willis is probably the best free agent out there, if not Aaron Rodgers.
Daniel Jones is going back to Indy, right? Yep. So that even though he's listed as a free agent, he
tore his Achilles.
Right. So then you got Aaron Rodgers is 43. I'd rather have Mac. Russell's 38. I'd rather have Mac. Would you rather have Mac or Marcus Mariota?
Mac.
Mac or Zach Wilson?
Mac.
Mac or Jimmy Garoppolo?
Mac.
Mac or Malik Willis? It's tougher.
I'll probably still go Mac. I need to see more from Malik Willis. What he did the last 2 years in spot duty was great.
So
impressive.
We just did the exercise. The 49ers should get a bonanza if they trade Mac Jones. This talk that, they're going to get a third-round pick. No, they're not. He's making $7 million a year, Chase. He's probably the second best quarterback available, and I think they may get a bonanza. They may be able to move up in round one. They may be able to say, I want 2 day 2 picks. They may be able to get more than people are thinking. That's my point is, like, if 10 days from now or a month from now, whatever it is, if the Niners traded Mac Jones to, I don't know, the Vikings, and they got a second-round pick, Jordan Addison, and a 2027 third, I think people would be like, what? And yet I think they could do it. I really do. And it's simply because of supply and demand and what Mac Jones represents to the next team he goes to. He's a 1-year look-see at $7 million, and if it doesn't work out, there's no financial commitment, and if it does work out, you're in the driver's seat on a long-term deal, probably at a reasonable number. So Mac Jones, I think, is going to fetch. I really do. I think for Shanahan to say we fully expect him to be here, I think that's the opening salvo of we want a shit ton for Mac Jones.
Yeah, and I know some people might say, Mac Jones for a second-round pick, that sounds crazy.
It is crazy.
Because the quarterback class is thinner, what that does, because there are huge question marks at quarterback after Fernando Mendoza, it drives up the value for Mac Jones. And you think about some of the quarterback-needy teams. Minnesota Vikings need a quarterback. Miami Dolphins need a quarterback. New York Jets need a quarterback. The Arizona Cardinals need a quarterback. The Houston Texans, if they move off of CJ Stroud, they might need a quarterback. There are several teams across the NFL who need a quarterback, and it doesn't make any sense for those teams to overdraft for an unknown. At this point, I think Mac Jones is a pretty known commodity. You pair him up with Kevin O'Connell with Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell has done a really good job developing the quarterback position. And I think that the Vikings would become a pretty interesting team if you pair Kevin O'Connell with Mac Jones. Pittsburgh Steelers need a quarterback. Mike McCarthy just got hired. He's a quarterback whisperer.
Right.
Cleveland Browns might need a quarterback.
Let me ask you this. What would this Niner environment, you're a big part of the Niner community. You do as many Niner videos as anybody. I am as well. We do a lot of Niner content. We're talking Niner football year round, so we're in touch with their audience. We take phone calls and chats, and we're constantly, chopping it up with Niner fans. What would be the reaction of Niners Nation if the Niners didn't have Mac Jones this year, didn't go 12-5, and instead went 5-12, missed the playoffs, and now we're heading into the 10th year of the Lynch Shanahan regime? How would the dialogue around this team be different? How would the dialogue around Lynch and Shanahan and their futures be different?
Yeah, isn't this crazy saying this now at the end of January, early February, compared to what you would think of this statement if I said it this time last year? Mac Jones and Eddie Pinheiro helped to save the 49ers season. And if the 49ers did not have Mac Jones and Eddie Pinheiro, they wouldn't have made the playoffs, and they would have had a bad year. And if the Niners, let's say they went 5-12 this year, on the heels of going 6-11 last year, I don't think that Jed York would have done this, but I guarantee you this, because this Niners fan base is very loud. The calls for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch to get fired, given how long they've been with the Niners, since 2017, would have been very, very loud. And there would have been chatter from this fan base and in NFL circles.
And I think I don't know if you would agree, but I will say this. I think that would guarantee that Lynch and Shanahan would enter 2026 on the proverbial hot seat.
Yes.
And they're not, they're not right now. So
No.
it makes you wonder, should the Niners hold on to Mac Jones at $7 million? Because as you said, he saved their bacon. He saved their season. You could argue he's changed the whole perception of the franchise. Should they just keep him?
Yeah, it comes down to this, and this has kind of been the sentence that's been my go-to when talking about Mac Jones. Are the Niners going to value quarterback security, which is keeping Mac Jones behind Brock Purdy, because Brock Purdy does have a little bit of an injury history? Even if you're a big Brock Purdy fan, you can admit that. Or will they value draft compensation for Mac Jones? Both of them are very important. You have this Niners team that is trying to usher in a new era. They're trying to get younger, more athletic, and faster, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They still have some remaining needs on defense. Some of their pillars there are getting older. But also, if you don't have Mac Jones and Brock Purdy gets hurt again in 2026, who's going to be your backup? Curtis Rourke? That's risky.
Yeah.
That's risky.
Yeah. Oh, that's major risky. All right, let's finish. We're going short today, but Chase is going to join me tonight on Niners Nightly as well. So for those of you who need more of your Chase Senior, you'll get a little bit more tonight on the radio. Let's finish with this. This has been a big week for the draft, right? Because you get Senior Bowl practices. It's all on TV. We get these high-def images of practices, and then we had the East-West Shrine practices. The East-West Shrine game was Tuesday night. The Senior Bowl is tomorrow at 11:30 West Coast. I'll be watching it and taping it and all that stuff. But from looking at the practices, and I know I don't think you're quite like me. You're probably not such a sicko that watches every practice, but you're keeping an eye on it and definitely seeing the images of the players and know a lot of the college game. Have you seen a player on either side of the football that you just thought this week, damn, that guy would be a great Niner? That's a guy they ought to go for in the draft.
Yeah, so like this point in my calendar, I'm getting ready to go to the Super Bowl next week, and a lot of people don't realize this, but I'm also the vice president of content strategy at Chat Sports, and we have daily shows for every NFL team. And so I'm helping to lead our coverage of Super Bowl 60 next week on top of talking Niners and Eagles. So for me, once I get to the NFL Combine at the end of February into March, that's when I really start to ramp up a lot of the draft coverage. Of course, I watch a lot of college football, but as far as like my evaluations and prospect rankings, I haven't really tapped fully into that. But some of these offensive linemen are really intriguing me, especially from the Senior Bowl. And those are the players that I'm kind of looking at right now. And I'm also intrigued by some of these wide receivers, because I do think the Niners have to address wide receiver pretty early. But I'll leave it to you. I mean, you're the former NFL scout. Which players have you kind of been looking at? I would love to do a show with Johnny Dells, because he was there in Mobile all week, and I know his coverage of some of these prospects was stellar.
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of reaching out to him to try to do a little stream as well. I like Jennings Dunker, the guy with the redheaded mullet from Iowa.
Okay.
To me, when I watch him, I see Lane Johnson.
Okay.
I see a right tackle
One of
who
the best
maybe
ever.
Yeah, I mean, Lane Johnson, Hall of Famer, which is a tough tag to put on Dunker, but I love everything about Dunker. He's this big barrel-chested Iowa right tackle, and I don't know if he's a left tackle. He might be more of a right tackle, so he may be more of a mid to late first or an early second round pick. He's probably not going to be a first half of the first round guy, but 6'5", 315, 320, great foot movement, well coached, runs the Iowa runs the same Niners scheme. I think he's a plug and play guy at guard as a rookie, and maybe the replacement at one of the tackle spots, when they need that. So I'm a big Jennings Dunker fan. But the other guy I wanted to ask you about is this Pittsburgh linebacker, Kyle Lewis. This guy was awesome. I mean, this guy's, had 31 TFLs this year, first in the country, 50 quarterback pressures, first in the country. His coverage grade was like top 10. He's got unbelievable coverage ability. This kid is a New Jersey kid, East Orange, New Jersey, went to Pitt. You know that part of the country. He's 6'1", about 225, 230. To me, he's got that second level. You got to close the space. Think Drake Thomas for Seattle. He could be the Niners' weak side Drake Thomas. I've already said, hey, I don't know about D. Winters, earlier in the stream. This guy could be a replacement. Do you know anything about Kyle Lewis from Pitt?
Kyle Lewis is a good player, and we were talking earlier about the Niners linebacker position, right? Like, Fred Warner's going to come back. He's going to be 100% by 2026, and shoot, I mean, he almost came back and may have played in the NFC Championship game if the Niners advanced. Outside of Fred Warner, what linebacker do you have confidence in going into next year? D. Winters, fast, moves like a bullet, makes some splash plays, but sometimes has some lapses and over pursues.
Gets engulfed in the run game. Bethune's a little slow.
Bethune's a little bit slow and probably a better special teams player. Curtis Robinson, only a special teams player. Luke Gifford, only a special teams player. So, like, Teddy Buchanan is a player out of Cal last year who I really liked, and Brad Graham was early on him, and he had a great year for Baltimore. Unfortunately, tore his ACL late in the season. But I want a player like I want a player who you can draft and develop alongside Fred Warner, and that's one of those options there.
Yeah, Nick Martin might be a guy I'm hoping that can.
What's up with the concussion? That's concerning. Head injury.
Very concerning. Could be the end of the road for Nick Martin before it even gets rolling. All right, that's gonna do it for us. We appreciate all you guys. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sleeper. Thanks to our good friends at Habbas Law for sponsoring the Krug Show. Chase, safe travels out here. You're gonna be out at Radio Row all week for Super Bowl 60. Give me just a 30-second quick thought on the bowl that we're gonna see. I like the Pats. I think the Patriots are going to pull the upset here. I like the Patriots to beat the Seahawks.
Yes, I'll be in the Bay Area, just traversing all around Northern California, seemingly from Monday to Friday. We'll be doing shows on Radio Row, of course, talking Niners, and I'll be around San Francisco, Santa Clara, San Jose, doing all types of Niners content. Maybe check out the electrical substation as well. I like Seattle in this game. I look at both teams and I'm like, where are the Patriots better? I'm not sure I can really pinpoint one specific area in which they're better. I think Seattle right now, Niner fans don't like to hear this, but they look like a juggernaut. They look like a wagon. And I think on both sides of the ball, they're just playing so well. I think it's the Seahawks year. I think they win Super Bowl 60, but it's the start of something special, of course, for New England and Drake May and Mike Vrabel.
3 supers, Joseph Ehrenberg, who I saw at the gym the other day. I couldn't believe it. He's like, Krug? I'm like, yeah, Ehrenberg. Well, unbelievable. He says, I like Sterling, who I streamed with last night. Draft defense by offense idea. Okay.
It's what the Eagles have done. That's what helped them win a Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, and you need sometimes more veteran players on offense. Ehrenberg says, could the Niners use Mack in their first rounder to trade up with the Jets or Cards? Yeah, Jets have the 16th pick. I could see that happening. Yep. Then trade back for a huge lot of high mid-round and late-round picks.
Ruben Bain Falls, please.
Oh, that would be my number one target if I could use Mack to get up to get Bain.
Caleb Downs, too.
Yeah, Whew. Caleb Downs would be a great one, too. That is a great call. Ehrenberg says, due to injury, how far does Chris Bell fall? I think Chris Bell is going to be a high second-round pick or a late first-round pick that's probably going to fall into the back of day 2. And don't be shocked if Chris Bell is there in the late 3rd round or possibly in the early 4th round because of the ACL. And that he could, because of that ACL, become an unbelievable steal. For Chase, I'm Larry. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared.